Hello, everybody. I am here today to give you a brief lesson about a stem and leaf plot. And this is a new standard under the best standards that it's being covered in fourth grade now. And this stem and leaf plot here is about the miles driven per day. So interpreting a stem and leaf plot is a task of its own before we can move into creating one and answering questions based off of one. So this is a key, and often a stem and leaf plot may have a key for us, and it tells us when the stem is 5 and the leaf is 8, it represents 58. So I'm going to list the data points over here based on what is given on my stem and leaf plot. So I have a 3 as my stem, which means that's in the tens place. If it was 13, then it would be 1 3 in the tens place, 13 tens, making it 100. And 30, and then whatever the leaf is. So the leaf here is 1. So 31. We also have 37. Now notice the numbers are in order from smallest to greatest when it's the leaves, and also listed here for the stems. Next is 4, but we do not have any numbers with a leaf of 4. So we do not have any digits with a 4 or anything in the with a 4 in the tens place. Next we have 52. 5 is the stem, leaf is 2. What's our next data point? 56. Now notice here we have stem of 5, leaf of 8, and again a repeat stem of 5 and leaf of 8. We have no digits in the 60s, or no data points in the 60s, and no data points in the 70s. Nothing with the digit 6 and anything after it. Nothing with the digit 7 with anything after it. So we can leave off 60s and 70s, move down to 80s. Now, it is important to know that when you have something that is in the 80s, you still have to list 6 and 7 for the 60s and 70s on your stem and leaf plot. You just don't put any leaves. Now, if I were to put a leaf of 0, that's meaning I have 60 as a data point, but I don't. So I do not want to put a leaf of 0 to represent that I don't have anything in the 60s. Now, I want to move down to talk about a couple basic data points that we can achieve from our line plot. And the first thing is the maximum. The maximum is going to be the largest data point. What is the largest amount of miles that this person had drove in a day? Well, these are smaller numbers, and here's our larger numbers. So the largest number is 85, and we can see that here on our stem and leaf plot. We can also see that over here where we have listed our data. And since we listed it directly from the stem and leaf plot, it is listed in order from least to greatest. Now, the minimum goes right along with the maximum, but this is going to be the smallest. What is the lowest amount of miles that this person had drove in a day? Well, our lowest number, our lowest data point is 31. And now it's important to understand the maximum and the minimum, even if you don't have questions involving that, because you use those two data points to find the range. Now, also the maximum and the minimum can be considered outliers, and they can kind of mess with our mean, which is something that we'll get into at a later point. But we have our range is going to be our maximum minus our minimum, our largest number minus our smallest number. And of course, we can't do smallest minus the largest. So it's 85 minus 15. And I'm going to do, 85 minus 31. I'm going to do that math over here. 5 minus 1 in the ones place is 5. Take away 1, leaves me with 4. Now in the tens place, I have 8. And I'm going to take away 1, 2, 3. Leaves me with 4, 5. So 54 is our range. That just simply means that the data from here to here has a range of 54 points. So if I were to carve a line plot out with all of these, of course, my biggest piece would be 85 and my smallest piece would be 31. And from this point to this point, there would be 54 little lines. And of course, my data would be plotted where it would go accordingly, like 37 right around here. Now, one more thing I want to talk about in just reviewing how to interpret a stem and leaf plot is the mode. And the mode is the number that shows up the most. I like to change mode to most just in my mind so that I can easily understand. Well, if we look at our stem and leaf plot, and if we look at our data, which number showed up the most? Which number of miles got driven the most? Well, we have 58 on 2 separate days. So 58 is certainly our mode. It shows up the most. Now, just to give you a further example, if we had 85 on here twice, then we would have 2 modes because 85 would also be our mode because these 2 numbers show up the most. If we did not have any number show up more than once, then we would have no mode. So that is a basic understanding of how to interpret data from a stem and leaf plot. Make sure you check out the next video on how to create a stem and leaf plot if that's something that you are ready for.